Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating and, honestly, a deeply misunderstood topic. We're looking at the psychology behind those folks who silently carry the weight of the entire world on their shoulders. You know who I'm talking about, right? If you're the designated fixer in your friend group, or maybe that completely reliable person at work who literally never drops a single ball, but then you silently solve every single one of your own personal problems in total isolation, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack the hidden mechanics of a mind that just outright refuses to reach out.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Tell me honestly, have you ever felt completely overwhelmed, just absolutely drowning in stress or exhaustion, but the second someone asks if you need a hand, you automatically smile and say, "No, I'm fine, I've got it." Even when you're carrying literal and metaphorical heavy boxes, and your arms are physically shaking, you actively refuse to let anyone grab a handle. It's almost a reflex, isn't it? You know you're at your absolute limit, yet the words, "I need help," simply refuse to make it past your lips.
Now, society loves to slap highly judgmental labels on this kind of behavior. People might call you needlessly stubborn or say you're too proud for your own good. They might even claim you have some massive ego problem that stops you from collaborating. But psychology tells us a completely different story. The reality? This isn't about your ego at all. Refusing help is actually a deeply rooted psychological adaptation. Actually, your mind is operating on a highly specific survival system. It was built specifically to protect you from the very real dangers of relying on unpredictable people. So, let's explore exactly where this comes from in Section 1, Origins of Survival Independence, Adapting to Early Inconsistency. We'll look at how developmental psychology explains the very foundation of this extreme self-reliance.
This brings us to a really powerful concept called survival independence. You see, when you're young, your nervous system is actively mapping out the world. If your caregivers are emotionally unavailable or inconsistent, your brain maps reliance on others as a threat, not a comfort. Developmental psychology shows us that the brain brilliantly adapts to this inconsistency by developing severe self-reliance. You essentially learn to handle pain entirely alone. So you're not avoiding help because you just want to push people away. No, your brain simply adapted to function without it. You stopped expecting a rescue because experience taught you early on that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself.
And closely related to this is another powerful psychological phenomenon known as parentification. This happens when, say, a 10-year-old has to become the emotional mediator for their parents, or maybe they're forced to manage adult responsibilities like caring for younger siblings while totally swallowing their own fears. Often, people who never asked for help were expected to manage these incredibly difficult situations and heavy emotions way before they were developmentally ready. Your brain adapted to this early massive responsibility by suppressing your own needs. You learned that you always have to be the mature one. And crucially, you learned that your own feelings, well, they must always take a back seat.
I really want to validate this for you today. You weren't born with this extreme independence. You became strong because there was simply no other option. Your hyper-independence isn't some personality flaw, and it's definitely not an emotional deficit. It was a perfectly necessary childhood survival tactic. At some point in your life, there was just no safety net beneath you. There was no other choice but to endure, and your brain did exactly what it needed to do to keep you moving forward.
But of course, carrying all that heavy armor forward into adulthood comes with a profound cost. Let's move to Section 2, the burden of guilt, why help feels unsafe, where we shift our focus to the subconscious barriers that keep deep thinkers locked right into this cycle of isolation today.
So the crucial point here is captured perfectly by this thought. If I am being taken care of, someone else is being burdened. Just take a second and let that really painful subconscious belief sink in. If you grew up having to be hyper-responsible all the time, relying on someone else doesn't actually feel like relief. Asking for a favor, that feels deeply, intensely selfish. It feels like you're actively inflicting your own personal weight onto someone else, just dragging them down into your problems.
We can actually see a very specific narrative play out in your nervous system whenever help is offered. First, you minimize your own needs, basically convincing yourself and everyone around you that you don't really need a break. Then, if you finally do break down and ask for support, you end up over-apologizing just for wanting a simple favor. And once you finally sit down to let someone else handle things, you're eaten alive by immense guilt for resting. Ultimately, your nervous system learns a pretty powerful lesson here. Receiving care is so incredibly uncomfortable that it's emotionally much easier to just build a huge wall, avoid help entirely, and do everything yourself to keep your nervous system feeling safe.
Now let's explore how this cycle creates an incredibly high threshold for trusting others. This brings us to Section 3, Trust and Self-Reliance, the cost of caring without protection.
People who refuse to ask for help almost universally share a past experience where they opened up only to be profoundly let down. And once trust is broken in that way, your protective brain prioritizes safety above absolutely everything else. The reality is, you don't actually hate help. You are just utterly terrified of temporary help. You know the devastating emotional cost of leaning your weight on someone only to have them step away and let you fall. So ultimately, you simply refuse to give anyone the power to let you down ever again.
But hey, it isn't all heavy burdens. Let's pivot for a moment to Section 4, the hidden strength, low social dependency. Because believe it or not, this very same survival adaptation has actually provided you with some pretty incredible, empowering psychological tools.
You possess what psychologists call low social dependency. Basically, this is the rare ability to find comfort, peace, and solutions entirely within your own mind, without needing social validation or external support to feel secure. Think about it for a second. While others might completely panic or spiral when a big group plan falls apart, you probably feel this secret, delightful little wave of relief, right? You don't need a committee of friends to validate your choices, and this gives you remarkable emotional endurance. You survive disappointment without breaking down, and you stay incredibly calm in a crisis because, well, you're always inherently prepared to handle it alone.
We've covered a lot of really deep psychological ground today. Let's bring this explainer to its conclusion in our final section, the validating reframe, You Are Not Broken, where we'll summarize the core thesis of everything we've discussed.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fundamental truth about who you are. Your nervous system simply adapted to pressure early on. You learned responsibility way before you were ever taught safety, and you learned strength long before you were allowed softness. If you're someone who constantly pushes through physical and mental exhaustion, and you literally never ever ask for a lifeline, you need to know right now that you are not broken. Your persistent drive is a profound testament to your endurance, not some defect in your personality.
You have an incredible, genuinely awe-inspiring capacity for emotional strength. But you've been carrying this heavy, patched-up backpack full of everyone else's expectations for decades. Healing doesn't mean you're losing your edge or becoming weak. It simply means you're finally allowed to rest. It means recognizing that you are in a safe enough place to take that heavy backpack off. You've carried it all for so long, and it is entirely okay to put the burden down.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative question. Who will you allow to help you today? Start incredibly small. Seriously, let someone hold a door for you. Delegate one minor, totally inconsequential task at work. Prove to your nervous system that it's actually safe to accept a hand. Understanding the world truly starts with understanding your own mind, and I really hope this explainer helped you see your own resilience in an empowering new light. Thanks so much for joining me, and I can't wait to uncover more about how we think and behave in our future explainers.